Yeah, tell me about it. What are you launching right now?
Well, it's a relaunch of our authorized facilitator training program. And so we've been doing it since the beginning. So we
Yeah.
train other people to use our tools and they become part of the membership. But I'm redoing all the materials to put it on online and in person. We're doing a live one day, yeah, now the middle of April, and then, but I'm putting everything online with videos and everything, so it's a big project. But once that's done, we'll be able to really work with people all over the world because right now, or in the past, I should say, it's been in person, the training, and now with this particular training, again, so people can become authorized facilitators of our work, it'll be both online and in person. So I'm excited about it, but it's a busy time.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. New horizons, right? Like
Yes,
you're
yes.
you're shifting into, I mean, you do not do a kind of digital platform before, it was everything in person, or is this like it's just
We
a
had,
continuation of
yeah, no,
digital
ever
integration?
since 2020, when the pandemic hit, then we started to put everything online. But this particular course is really big because it's like all of our stuff. And so I just hadn't put all of that. I'd started it, but I hadn't put it all online. And like now is the time, and I have people who want it. And so, yeah, no, we've worked online ever since when we had to pivot. So it's not that as much as this is just a lot of material that I'm working with.
Okay. You know what? Should we just transition in to the introduction here quickly? Because I would love to include this into the show actually, but maybe I can introduce you, Lori Palm, the founder and CEO of Core Passions Inc. Lori, thank you so much for coming on here to tell us about your business. Um, yeah, you also mentioned you're building an AI as well, right? With
Yes,
your the platform you're on, Zoho.
yes, that's true.
Yeah. How's that going? Maybe you could give us an explanation of how that's going to be integrated into your business.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. It's just we're still in the more beginning stages of it. I think who I think would be great is you should interview my tech guru, whose name is also Lori. We talked about that
Yeah.
for all the more technical things. I think one of the things for us that's so key is that it's providing us a place to put all of our data and to store it in a language that we'll be able to use. And
Yeah.
like right now, as we are developing the online version for the Core Passion Facilitator training, which has pretty much most everything that we do. Now people will be able to look it up online. They won't just need a binder, and they can ask questions. And so I'm really excited about that part of putting our data in a safe place that has what protection, as well as you'll be able to look things up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
she is the other Lori is taking all of our transcripts and all of our material and loading it in, and so she's still in the process of doing that.
Um, you know, you've been in the business for years. What was it like when you were starting? I mean, you were in social working actually to begin. Maybe you could walk us
Yes.
through when you were getting into the industry,
Okay.
what the process was like versus today.
Yes, I think that, well, back then, which was a long time ago, and yeah, probably 50 years ago, and when I was first starting out, and I got a degree in social work, but I never actually worked in that industry. What I realized as I went into it was that it was a little too confined. And so I started working with people and doing different things. I created a speakers bureau and that really helped me understand people. I went into the financial services industry. I got my Series 7 license to be a broker. I realized that that wasn't my thing. I understood it, but it was always about the people. And I always came back to what about the people and how can I work with people and how can I help people find out who they are and then create what they want to do and make money doing it for, as a career or just to have that purpose in their life. And so I think each one of the things that I've done has taken me through that process. And then we started Core Passion and created the Core Passion assessment back in 2003. And that really became the culmination of all this data, if you will, that I had brought because of all the experiences I had and all the different kinds of people I worked with. And so we created the assessment and then all of the programs that now go with it. When we first created the assessment, which is valid and reliable, and you get a bar chart, and so people, it's believable because you can see a graph and numbers of measuring the energy that drives you to do what you do. And that's the foundation of Core Passion, is understanding what is the driving energies that drive your behaviors, do your decisions, and have throughout your life. And when you can put words to that and a language to that, that's the big piece for people, is how can I know who I am and what are the words for just who I am, not just what I do, but who am I, what drives me. And so that was these last 20 some years has been the majority of the work.
I think if I remember correctly, you told me when we were in our pre-call that Lori, the other Lori, helped you put together the assessment back in like 2000. No, is that the same Lori, or was there a third? I feel like
Nope,
when we
nope,
talked
that's
to
the
you,
same
mentioned
Lori.
it.
It's the same Lori. Back in 2003, yes, because my whole, as I worked with people, I was always asking the question, what are the unique words of wisdom that you have to offer to the world that no one else has in exactly the way that you do? And of course, that's what you market, is what makes you unique. And when the other Lori came into my life and she said, well, we can duplicate you. And I said, no, you can't. I'm unique. We are all unique. She said, of course we can't duplicate you, but we can duplicate your process. And that's how the assessment started, is taking all this knowledge that was up here and putting it into an assessment. We used one of the top methodologists at that time. Those are people who create assessments. And it came, when we finished creating it, it came out of the box valid and reliable. And it has to be that in order to take it into corporations and so on. And like I said, it has a graph and numbers, so it's measuring something so people can believe that. It's not just, well, I think maybe this is who I am. This is, this is saying, it's helping you put words to that. And so, Lori has been with me through that, all of that, and is still today. She's the one, along with some other programmers, who are creating the AI, because she knows Core Passion throughout all these years. And that's.
Something is tickling me. You said that during COVID, you put more kind of more of an investment into putting your process online, but didn't you put the assessment online like way back in 2003? Like
Yes,
it's not.
yes, yeah, yes, you are right. The assessment started out back in 2003. It started online, which was very rare at that time. People weren't, they weren't doing that. So, Lori, the other Lori, let's just call her,
Yeah.
Lori too. um, she she's a visionary, an absolute visionary, and she, suggested and showed how we could do that. And it's actually been reprogrammed 5 times in the course of these 23 years, but the assessment itself has not changed. We haven't changed anything at the assessment, more just the platforms of how where it's been. And so, yes, the assessment was always online. We've always had websites. Oh, it's so, excuse me. But what we didn't have was all the training. The training wasn't online. That wasn't until in 2020 when all of a sudden we weren't doing live training anymore because nobody was moving. You were, stuck at home. So that's when we started developing all the online training. But the assessment has always been, thank you for noticing that, has always been online. So we were pioneers in that respect back then.
Hmm. There was also another kind of piece that stuck with me when we talked before. It was a quote that you threw out at me. I think it's like kind of a famous phrase of yours based on the way you framed it. You said, "When you know who you are, you know what to do." I mean, that's a very powerful statement. And like,
Yes.
my question would be like, when did you realize like that was a true statement, and how have you incorporated that into your teaching?
That has been, it's the foundation of everything, and it's been since the beginning with the assessment. Yeah, we've added now, so it's when you know who you are, you know what to do, and sometimes I add other things, you know what to say, and you get results. So but that base, when you know who you are, you know what to do. That has been there since the beginning because that's our philosophy. First, it comes from in here, inside. Who am I? It's it's the hardest question in the world. Second hardest question is what do I want? And so being able to answer those questions, that's the core of what people are looking for. And I think that's more important than ever as we're moving into this new future with AI is keeping the core of who you are, because we know that AI can make you look and sound and have the words of anybody, anything. But then is that authentic? And even when you're doing your research, I mean, we use AI because it's very helpful, but keeping the core of what you're saying first and then putting that through AI is keeping the core of, like, for us, it's our foundation. So
Right.
yeah, it's our tagline for, yeah, since the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, AI is great, but we still need to have the base knowledge to feed into it, right? And we need to be the ones that are the creatives that can continue to generate more knowledge and discover more.
Yes. And I think it's so important to ask a good question of AI. And in fact, my husband and I were just talking about that last night. He was doing a bunch of research, and he said, "Yeah, I had to ask this for the information he was wanting. He had to ask the question several different ways, and I think that is key to getting the perspective that you want, because depending on how you ask the question, you're going to get different perspectives and different different answers. And I've always said that's one of my gifts in my coaching with people is I see the perspectives that others don't, and I ask the question to find those, and then you look at it and say, well, how do I want to use it in this scenario? And it's asking a good question and asking several questions to give you several perspectives of what the information you're trying to get. Do, you know what
Right.
I mean? It's
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's not just the way that you ask a question to AI, but like when you ask a question to a human being, like being able to, just a slight change, even in the tone of your voice, is going to change the meaning of what we're saying. So we're going to be able to extract different tidbits of knowledge, based on the reference and the framing and like the intention that we come in with, right?
absolutely, yes.
when you're, could you actually maybe walk us through like how you know, you're talking about the framing that you have and the question asking that you do with your clients. Um, Maybe you could walk us through what that looks like and, you know, just maybe the kind of the onboarding of the core passion assessment and what your process looks like when you're actually working with a client.
So, sure, I think that, well, everyone starts with taking the assessment. And whether
Right.
we're working with a team or a leader or I'm coaching an entrepreneur, it always starts with the assessment. And then I will do a deeper dive, or if we're teaching a class on communication, for instance, with a team inside of a company, it's looking at who are all the people. It's the who am I? That's where it starts. And the one of the processes that we have developed is called passion, vision, action. And it's key to everything when you want to accomplish something, when you want to create something. So many times people just start doing things. Oh, if I'm busy, I must be accomplishing something. And, it's just busyness. That would be the action. They're taking a lot of action, but they don't really know where they're going, or it's not clear. And sometimes people have a clear vision of where they want to go, but they don't know how they're going to get there. So that the action isn't aligned with the vision. But the passion, if you think of a triangle, passion, vision, action, it's the passion, nobody takes into account what is the energy driving this vision and the actions. And so when you can start to look at that, so first you're looking at what are we call them the core passion codes. There's 12 codes that go as part of the assessment. Which codes are driving what you want to do, what you want to create, what you're bringing to the table as part of a team, and then what are the actions that need to be done based on what's driving you and what's the vision that you're trying to create. So that process is key to everything that we do in terms of first looking at who are you, what do you want, how are you going to get there.
Yeah. So when you take this the assessment, what does the report actually tell you then?
So it's a 21-page report. You're going to see the graph and numbers, all 12 codes, and we have all 12 inside of us. But the top, we call them the top 5, are totally driving who we are. And it explains why you're doing what you do. And each code, and so in the report, you're going to get all 12 pages, 1 page for each code. And in the graph and numbers, the profile we call it, that's where it's going to show you, and it's colored and it's got numbers. What are the top ones that drive you? And so if you think about the people that you know, and one of the things from a communication standpoint is that we think when we see people doing something, we think they're doing it for the same reason we are. And they're generally not. They might be doing the same thing, but the drivers are different. And so first it's understanding, why am I doing this, and what is, and also part of the codes is we say your greatest gift is also your greatest challenge. The thing that makes you so good at the things that you do, when it's out of balance, and when I use the word challenge, it's not good or bad or right or wrong, it's out of balance. Noticing what gets you out of balance and how are you going to get back to balance. That's a key for people. It's like, wow, I didn't realize what was the tipping point that got me out of balance. Because when we're out of balance, we don't work as well, we're not as productive, we're not as happy. So how do you get back to balance, and creating something for yourself to help you get back to balance? So, but
So
in the report, it shows all of that. What is your greatest gift? What's your greatest challenge? How does it affect relationships? And then we have created a lot of other things right now. In fact, one of the things I'm working on also is I have a little course called a love affair with money. I do a lot of work around money because I work with people who have businesses who don't always have a relationship with money. And love and money are the same energy. And so when you understand how do you see money, so we're actually creating a little, what do I call it, dictionary, if you will, of each of the codes and how do they see money? How do they see love? Because they're connected. And it's really fascinating. And so we're always looking at bringing more information into, it's the basic report is the basic report, but there's more stuff that goes with it as we create courses and stuff and things like that.
Yeah,
So
because this is what you're kind of working with is like foundational of the personality. I think actually when we were talking, you even used the word pre-personality,
yes.
and like, but like what? Can you like explain that a little bit? Like, in it's like you're saying the personality is made up by these 21 steps. Like, what it? Could you?
Yeah, so core passion is an energy. It's driving decisions, behaviors, and that sort of thing. And that our personality is part of that. And so we're looking at, so what's the energy that's driving it and your behaviors, for instance. And and there's 12 core passion codes. And again, the top ones are driving you. I mean, my top one is inspiration. That's why I
Okay.
talk a lot.
Yeah,
But I
inspire
understand
other people.
people. Yeah, and partnership and service, those are all mine. Now, I don't like to profile because I'm always looking for the uniqueness, but I can tell you, like if I'm working with engineers or IT people, they're going to have form, mastership, research. Very different. And understanding what they say and how they say it is key to communication because sometimes you're talking to somebody and it's like you're like this. You're not connecting. You're saying the words and they're not hearing it. And it's so one of our new apps is called Code Talking. How do you talk to somebody who is driven by different codes and how can you get them to hear what you're trying to tell them? How do you need to be and what do you need to do? So it goes back to that who you are and what do you do? What do you say? Yeah, I was just working with the team, and we're still the app is still in test mode, but now you can actually have it on your phone and you can program it in and say, okay, how do I need to be so this person who is high in power and they don't want to waste any time on conversation. Just give me the details, give me the facts. How do I need to be, and what do I need to tell them if they want to hear what I'm saying? Where somebody with partnership, like me, I like to have the conversation, and but if you're talking to somebody with power, yeah, no, just cut to the chase. What's the bottom line? Tell me what do we need to do? And so understanding how do you need to be and do and say to somebody who sees the world differently.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing is we're all looking at life through different lenses, right? And so being
Yeah,
able to understand the lens that someone is looking through is going to lend you a lot of power in terms of how you're able to interact with them and be able to yeah find agreements and communicate, right? It's
exactly.
like I'm sure that we've all done it. Like and especially when you started talking about the IT guys, I was thinking of a friend of mine where it's like we don't necessarily communicate the same way, and sometimes you feel like you're kind of hitting your head into a wall. And I'm sure that everyone has a story like that they can relate.
Exactly. It's because yeah. Again, I hate to profile, but they're generally not the best communicators. Because they don't look at the world like that, and they don't have the words. That's why they love this. It's like, oh my God, Now I know why I've done, as some have said, all the dumb things I've done throughout my life. And it's, but now I understand and I can shift my perspective. And if I have to talk to somebody like me, like one of the companies I'm working with, it's a small company and it's maybe 15 people. And the two owners, the co-owners, one of the guy is research and the woman is not and has she's the business development and the salesperson and he's the engineer. And until they understood why each one was doing what they do and how different it is, I mean, they were having a really hard time. And now they have a whole different language to talk about it. And so she can tell the engineer, "Oh, I think your research is overbalanced. Come on back." Instead of saying, "Hey, why did you do that stupid thing?" So
Yeah.
it creates a whole different language, and we have what we call a team report, or whether it's two people or however many people it is. And when you see it in a graph, and you see each of the people and what are their top five in this graph, it's like, understand these other people who are sitting around the table and why they say what they do or do what they do. And it really changes the dynamics. And all of a sudden, they can start to collaborate on a whole different level.
Mhm. You've brought up this term balance before and bringing people back into balance like a couple times now. And I'm just kind of wanting some clarification. Like, what does it mean when someone's out of balance? Like, how do you spot that? How do you come back into balance? And what are the repercussions of being out of balance?
Yes, that's a really good question. And generally, say you walk into a room and there's people there, or you're just meeting somebody, and they're not saying anything, but you can tell something's not right. Okay? So something in their life is not right. You're using your intuition. You're like,
Pestering.
yeah, the energy they put out is telling you. They're not telling you the words, but the energy, and in fact, maybe I can't remember if we talked about this, but one of the things that I do from an experiential standpoint is bring divining rods to a training, or if I'm speaking and I'll bring somebody up. If you know what divining rods are, they can
So it's like
sense.
a kind of a
Yeah,
sorry,
two
a
two.
talking totem kind of thing.
Yeah, and they go like this when they find energy. They've used them for centuries. Water, electricity. Well, I measure people's energy, and
Okay.
they are amazed because I can show them. They don't have to say anything, and I take them through this little process. First of all, who are you? And we'll be, if it's a room, we'll each be at the end of the room. And I'll say to the person, and they've never done this before, and I pick them out of the crowd, and I'll say, okay, just be who you are. And so I walk up to them with these rods, and all of a sudden, usually it's about 3 feet before I get to them, the rods will go like that. It's measuring the energy that they're putting out. And if you think about when you're in a group, what's comfortable for you? If people get too close, it's uncomfortable. And so that 3 feet of energy is kind of a norm. Then I will walk back to the other side of the room and say, okay, now I want you to think of something really happy. What makes you really, really happy? Don't tell me, don't say anything, just think about it. And then I start walking towards them. I may go out 6 to 10 feet and they'll go like this. Their energy gets bigger. Then I walk back and I say, okay, now I want you to think about something. Whether it could be either sad or angry, either one, it's the same energy. And I start walking very slowly up to them. I go up to them and the rods hit them. There is no energy. We think if we don't say anything, nobody's going to know. They do. But what that's telling you is that all the energy is inside of you, and that's what creates illness and a lot of other things. And so then I say, okay, I don't stay that way, go back to happy, and I go back and I measure it again, and it comes way out. So what that tells you is that what our thoughts are is playing with our energy. And so when you walk into a room, what kind of energy do you want to have? And when people realize that, they can do something about it. So it's our thoughts, our emotions. If you're really out of balance, what gets you back to balance? Do you need to go walk outside? Do you need to be quiet for a little bit? What are the tools? And each person has kind of what works for them in terms of their energy. So it's very when people can experience it, and usually I will, if I'm teaching a class, I'll bring a bunch of extra rods and I let them play with them so they can see I'm not manipulating this. This is what's actually happening. And it blows people away because they don't know.
Okay. So when someone's out of balance, then they have that kind of more negative energy and they're more closed off, and you're just trying to bring them back into their normal self, their normal energy level, state of mind.
Yes, yes. And, and then I will say, start to be aware because most people aren't aware. And it's just like throughout your life, the same things keep happening over and over and over. And it's like when you're out of balance, how did I get down here again to this out of balance place? And sometimes it's really out of balance. But if you can start to recognize it earlier, you don't have to go all the way to the bottom of that challenge area. And so what are the things that get you out of balance? What's the tipping point? And I have people just start to pay attention to that. And then what do you do personally, because each person is different, to get back to balance? And so you're consciously thinking about that instead of just letting things happen and it's like, oh, how did I get here again? And it's a consciousness of creating your energy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's so important because I feel like, practicing mindfulness is something that even if we are mindful of it's something we should practice. It doesn't mean you always follow through with it.
Right.
It's like it's so easy to fall into your routine and just to become accepting of like whatever state you're in. When you actually are reminded that, your state of mood, state of being is actually something that, I mean, not always, but a lot of the time it's a choice, right?
It
It's
is.
like we're able to practice, you know, deciding to be happy instead of being in a funk. If something goes wrong, I mean, yes, it's going to be jarring a lot of the times, but you can also decide to let it not affect you and to move on and just solve the situation instead of being upset for days over it. I mean, sometimes it's a little more complicated, of course, but
Right. And I think that's what that experience does is it shows people, oh, I can shift pretty quickly if I choose to. And yeah, because otherwise you like you say, you can stay in it for a long time. And once you start to realize it and recognize it, it's getting what I call back to balance, being in the flow, however you want to, being in that state of happiness or flow or whatever you want to call it. It's that's where you're going to be more effective. You're going to be more productive. Your performance is going to be better, and you're just going to feel better.
yeah. You also mentioned like your greatest gift and your greatest challenge. Is this kind of like your strength and your weakness, or could you dive in a bit about actually is represented by the greatest gift and the challenge?
Sure. Um, the greatest, what I call the greatest gift, there is the strength and weakness. There's that's more, they use that in personality assessments, which can be helpful. But when I use the word your greatest gift, it's what you naturally do. And sometimes you don't even have to, in one sense, learn it. You just are naturally good. I am naturally good at working with people. And once you figure that out, that really helps you understand where you want to go with your career and so on. And so your gift, or somebody who is high in research, their gift is seeing, yeah, let's use that scenario of research. Somebody who's high in research has the gift of, first of all, asking questions, and they go look for the answer, find the answer, but all it does is bring up another question, and then they go. So people who are high in research generally become experts in things because they just keep diving. And so one of the challenges is, how can you trust when you actually get an answer? Because when you are doing the research, you're getting this answer, but you really don't trust. I got to ask some more questions to get more information. And so when you're dealing with data, not a problem. But that same energy, and again, I'm using the word energy, when you apply it to people, it brings up trust issues, because somebody who's high in research is always looking for, well, what wasn't said? What's the underlining meaning? What do they really mean that they didn't say? And they start, so they don't really trust people because they're always looking for what wasn't said or what's underneath it. And so that would be a challenge. So it's your greatest gift can also show up then as a challenge in different scenarios.
When you're working with people and you're identifying their greatest gifts, like how does this translate into, your coaching benefiting their business? Because I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to the dollars and the cents. People are trying to, you know, get an ROI on their investment. You're coaching people in business after all. So like, whether it's helping people to start a business or it's helping people restructure an organization, could you maybe like could you walk us through that? Like how you're able to push people in the right direction so they actually see those results that they're looking for, at the bottom line.
Yeah, I think it goes back to communication and collaboration and engagement. People, the data now, well, it has been for the last few years, about engagement and how many people are not engaged. Well, if you've got people who are not engaged, that totally is affecting your ROI and productivity and engagement. And so by bringing that up and understanding the people who are on the team, and if they don't fit with the team or the culture, they're probably going to quit. Well, or they'll do the quiet quitting and they don't actually quit, but they're not engaged. And so we're looking at when people bring us in, they bring us in when there's a problem. If everything's going great in their business, they're probably not going to bring us in because they don't want to change anything and they don't want to rock the boat. But when there's a problem, that's when they're going to bring us in. And usually, we always want to blame it on technology, but it's usually people. People are usually the problem, and that's what we work with is the people. And so when you can get your team to be more productive, more engaged, have higher performance, so you have a high performing team, that's totally affecting the bottom line, and that's how they know. Plus, people want to come in and work because they're happier. But it totally affects the bottom line when people are engaged and they're high performing.
So when you're coming in and you're someone reaches out to you, they need help, things are dysfunctional, like the business is suffering because of it. Like you're gonna end up having some hard conversations, I'm assuming. What are some of those questions that you ask them, during this process in order to heal them, you gotta kind of like rip the band-aid off, tough love. Like what are the hard-hitting questions or
Oh,
things that,
oh,
that
you
you
ask
find
such
typically?
good questions, Monty. Um, I think, well, generally, you know, um, my husband always says, "Okay, well, what question should I ask?" I said, I don't know what questions to ask. I know what questions to ask when I'm in the situation talking. And that's
Right.
when, but generally, so when I'm first meeting somebody, it's like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? Where do you see the problem? That's where we start, or problems. And then as we start to dig deeper into, okay, so what's actually happening here? And then we look at the solutions. We look at, so do you have one person who's the problem, or do you have a whole team that's dysfunctional because they can't talk to each other and they can't communicate? And so it's, once I get in there, then I know which track, which questions and which direction to move. And so, yes, we have our kind of our standard training. We have for teams, it's passion driven communication, passion driven engagement. Same with leaders, same thing. But then going that step deeper of what's actually going on. So when I have a team together and we see the team report and what all the codes are for each person, the top codes I'm talking about, and what's driving them, we're going to tell almost right away where some of the problems are in communication, and then how do we work with that? And that's it's a huge aha for people. They know something's not right, but they don't know what. And that's what the assessment is going to help, and are working with the experiences for them to see, and then how do they change that? And so, it's a process.
Have you ever walked into an office, the CEO brings you in and he's like, there's dysfunction in the workplace. We need you to come and fix things. And I mean, without naming any businesses, but like, have you ever kind of come back and looked at the CEO and been like,
There's a
actually, we gotta
problem.
have a talk? Do you have any stories like that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it really, and it does, it has to come from the top down. Okay. You know, if you start at that, mid level, let's just say. But if the top people, the CEO and the leadership team, isn't buying into this, and we're not going to change, as a leadership team, they would say, we're not changing. It's the people below us that are the problem. Well, right there, that's part of the problem with the leadership team and the top people. And it's not a one and done. This is a process, and it's over time. It's not a, what do they call it, a silver bullet. "Oh, bring me in one time and I will change everything." No, it doesn't work like that. It's the working with the people and identifying where are the issues, and at the people at the top, are they aligned to these changes? Because when you start changing things, it changes everything. And they have to be ready to do that. And if they're not, it's not going to work.
yeah, that's the thing is if you change the work environment with, everyone except for the CEO, but so the CEO is kind of the source of the toxicity, and that kind of just flows down the chain of command, then nothing's
Yes.
going to change. Like the leadership, of course, like has to be on board. That you know, makes total sense. How do you find that like the dynamic changes in terms of like when you're dealing with leadership and structures, like depending on what kind of organization you're with? Because I mean, obviously you've worked with more than just corporate. I believe in our chat, you mentioned that you work with some nonprofits as well as government. How does your process change depending on like what environment you're in?
The process, it's people. So the process pretty much stays the same when we're working with, say, a nonprofit, when we're talking about examples. For instance, when in the training of things, we'll use the examples that are going to apply to whatever industry we're in. If we're talking to accountants who are merging, let's say, two companies that are merging, the basic training is the same, but how we look at that and the examples that we use, that shifts depending on who we're working with. But people are people. I don't care where. That the issues are still there.
At the end of the day, even if the structure changes slightly, I mean, we all have the same nature. Just because you have a different job title doesn't mean you're not going to be the same human being. More or less, of course.
Yes.
Like, if there was a CEO that was listening right now and they had a great business on paper, but something felt off, like what would you tell them? What would be like the hard love you would give them in order to kind of get themselves back on track to try and find that balance again? Or would you come at it with a softer touch?
I generally use a softer touch, but
Fair.
I always get to the point. And
Yeah.
it's all about asking a good question because we all have all the answers inside of us, but they get stuck. And my job is to ask the questions that will bring the answers to the top so they're actually seeing this and they have to be open to it. Okay, we have to start there. If they're not open to knowing something's off, but they don't know what is off, that then it's we're looking for, okay, what is not right in your life? And sometimes if we're looking at things for anybody, but a CEO, if you look at there's what I call the focus four. There's four areas of our life. There's our health, wellness, our relationships, our career, financial, that's one area, and then that spiritual part of us, whatever that means for you. And if any of those other areas, people bring me in for business, okay, but if any of these other areas in their life are out of balance, it's totally affecting their work as well. So it is looking at life and it's and seeing what's really going on because sometimes it's something that isn't necessarily in the business, but it's other parts of their life. And so it's identifying it, see if they want to do anything about it. If not, nothing's going to change. It's knowing that all these areas of our life, if any one of them is out of balance, it's affecting the other ones. And so it's finding that out and not that it's not counseling, but sometimes it looks like that, but it's not. But it's identifying and then what do you want, what can we do to shift that? And just understanding it and identifying something, then we can shift that. But how does it show up in the business? That's what we want to know. And how do we shift that to align it in a better way?
So, yeah, it sounds like practicing introspection and actually acknowledging where the source of an issue is versus just assigning blame would be kind of, I mean,
Yes.
hearing that from you, if I was in the CEO's shoes, that's where I would kind of, it's like, okay, it's time to take a look inside and time to understand things
Mm-hmm.
and then probably have a conversation with someone.
Yes. And again, I don't have to tell them. I just have to ask the right questions, and that will come out. You know. Um, so
So I have another one. You've spent a long time studying what drives people. You like built your business around this. What do you know? I mean, obviously you had a good start when you made your assessment, but how has your opinion changed, or what do you know better about human motivation than when you started? Do you have a how has your understanding evolved over these years?
well, I think when we first created the assessment, I thought, oh, when people see this and understand who they are, they're just going to know what to do with it. They don't. And so Then it
You have to
was,
take their
okay,
hand
how
and
do I
really,
apply this information to my life? And that's where the passion, vision, action process came in. So when we can apply it to something, it's much easier. So it's that what's the vision? What do you want to create in your life? Okay, how are we going to get there? And what's driving it? And when we use those 3 points, that's going to really help people move to where they want to go. And in the beginning, I didn't know that. So that's evolved, and more of our, we now have a path to performance. It's got 5 steps. It's more taking people through the the system, or not the system, the process. And so and that's what people need, one step at a time. It's and it's deeper stuff. It's looking at yourself. And so when I look at who's asking those questions, there's certain times in our life where we start to question things, about the early 20s. You've gotten out of college or you haven't gone to college, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do for my career? That's one time. Mid-career, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm really good at it, and it doesn't drive me. I do not want to do it anymore. That's another time frame of people who are exploring. And then you get into the 50s, and people are like, yeah, what's next for me? I've made it to the top of my career. Now, what's a legacy I want to leave? Well, maybe more 60s. And what do I want next? If you're not asking the question, you're not going to explore the answer. So,
so it comes back to the correct line of questioning and trying to understand like your your framing on life. Then it sounds like.
yeah, who am I? What am I really here to do? Those are those core questions. And if you're not ready to look at that, then they're probably not a client of ours. How can I make my business better and continue to do what fulfills me in both my passion and my purpose here, and how can I make money doing it? It's that sort of a thing. And I think the people who are asking those questions, that's our clients. If they don't want to explore who they are, they're not our client.
Right. I mean, it makes sense that in order to come and seek help, like you have to be someone that is open to understand, right? And it takes like I think we talked about this at the start. Uh, it's something that's been on my mind at least. It takes vulnerability to go out and actually find that help and to be able to open up and connect with the people that will give you the guidance you need.
And I think that the word guidance, yeah, I guess we help people, but we're showing them a way to shift and change if they so choose to do that. And I think that's the key.
Hmm. Laurie, to wind things down, I'm going to flip the question on you that you gave to me, and I believe that you give to all of your clients when you're with them, which is, what are the unique words of wisdom that you bring to the world that nobody else has in the exact same way that you do?
I think my unique words of wisdom are what we talked about earlier. When you know who you are, you know what to do, and that has been, like I said, the tagline. And my unique gifts are understanding people, asking good questions, and I think, and knowing that everything is energy, including what drives people to do what they do, and those are I think it's unique to me in having discovered that.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And if you'd like to, plug your website or anything right now, this would be the time. Where can we find you? What's your website or your email address that they can reach you at?
So the website corepassion.com, and my email is Lori at corepassion.com. And yes, I would love to have people check us out. One of our new taglines is "We solve the people puzzle," so you'll see that on the website. And I think that's what people are, puzzles, and how do we get them to put the puzzles together to make a whole scenario. So yes, corepassion.com.
Okay, you know where to find her, folks. Thank you so much for coming, and it was lovely talking to you, Lori.
Thank you, Monty.
Ciao, ciao.